Welcome, everyone. This is Jaidev Singh from Floricopia, and today we have a very special webcast for you, The Way of Ayurvedic Herbs with Khalsa. This is a very special free webcast, and KP, as he's famously known in the herbal world, is also going to be teaching The Way of Ayurvedic Herbs full home learning course, which we'll talk a little bit more at the end of today's class. But it is a very special class, and if some of you are familiar with Kartapudik from his Complete Health course that we produced several months ago through Floricopia, and many of you may be familiar with him from other places, from other classes, maybe from his book of the same name, The Way of Ayurvedic Herbs, that he wrote with Michael Tierra. But if you are familiar with Kartapudik, then you know he is a gem, and he is like a walking encyclopedia full of knowledge and wisdom. And when I think of Kartapudik, I think of really one of the most important herbalists we have in the world today, and certainly this country and this Western world. And when I think of KP, I also think of a person who's really figured out over many, many, many years how to make herbs work, how to use them clinically, and how to make them really, really effective so that they really have a fantastic impact on people's everyday lives. So whether you are a practitioner who is looking to get more experience and to increase your reservoir of knowledge, or if you're just a person who has a general interest in herbs and you want to use them for yourself and with your family, I think you're going to really enjoy this special free class today, and I think many of you are going to be really inspired to join us for the full Way of Ayurvedic Herbs home course. So with that being said, welcome, KP.
Thanks very much, Dave. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Indeed, absolutely. And I was recently listening to the practicum that you gave at the conference for the National Ayurvedic Medical Association that took place just a month or so ago. And I heard you mention that you are now the first president of the American Herbalist Guild that is actually an Ayurvedic herbalist.
Yeah, the American Herbalist Guild has been around for 25 years. It's the professional association for clinical herbalists, and now, for the first time, we have an Ayurvedic practitioner at the helm, so it's a great honor for me to hold that position and to bring Ayurveda to a place of a bit more prominence in the public eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent. And of course, you're a Ayurvedic herbalist, but you're also very knowledgeable in Chinese herbalism and Western herbalism. So with this being a class called The Way of Ayurvedic Herbs, in your mind, what is special, what is unique about Ayurvedic herbalism?
In a certain sense, herbalism is all the same. Plants are plants wherever they grow, and people use them and have used them for uncounted centuries to enhance their health. The herb doesn't know whether it's growing in India or China. But the beauty of Ayurveda is that it's the oldest organized system of natural healing, certainly including herbal medicine, and it's very practically oriented. The idea of Ayurveda is to live a long, healthy life and to be healthy, happy, spiritual, and balanced during that entire time of your life. So Ayurveda is very focused on getting results quickly and effectively over the long run. So they figured out a way to really make things work. Yes, there's theory involved in Ayurveda, but the theory is secondary to actually really working. So Ayurveda insists that we do careful assessment of what's going on in our body, apply the right herb in the right way, at the right dose, in the right preparation, and then you get stupendous results. So I'm very attracted to the way that Ayurveda focuses on bringing people back to balance quickly, and not just based on some sort of fantasy that maybe it could work or should work, but actually that it really does work. And I found that orientation to be so valuable in my practice over 40 years.
Beautiful. So shall we jump into the class here?
Absolutely. Well, thanks, everyone, for joining us here for The Way of Ayurvedic Herbs. We want to talk a little bit about Ayurveda and what it is, and then go right into some things that you'll be able to use the moment this class is over. So I want to focus on things that are going to be valuable to you, and then give you a taste of the kinds of things we're going to do in this longer 6-session series. Yoga and Ayurveda are the same system. They're inseparable sister sciences that come from the same source, lead to the same goal. Generally speaking, yoga is considered to be the mental or spiritual development side of Vedic sciences or Ayurveda. The word yoga actually means divine union. It comes from the same root as the word yoke in English. And so people use that for the development of their higher selves, their spiritual and mental lives. Ayurveda, on the other hand, is the medical system. It's what keeps us healthy. But really there's no dividing line between the two. Ayurvedic physicians practice and recommend yoga, and yoga masters, such as my mentor, recommend and practice Ayurveda. So Ayurveda doesn't draw distinctions between the physical, mental, and spiritual. It's all about evolving as a human being. One of the most famous things that my mentor said is that if you're constipated, you're not a holy man. If you're constipated, you can't think right, you can't function correctly. So it's really necessary that your whole body, mind, and spirit be aligned in excellence. Ayurveda is a very holistic system. Between Ayurveda and yoga, this group of sciences covers all aspects of what you could run into as a human being, your life, your lifestyle, your life cycles, the phases of life that you're in, how to eat, how to sleep, how to take herbal medicines. So really a very complete package all the way around. One of the most important things there is healing foods. So let's talk a little bit about healing foods. Of course, foods are a major part of Ayurveda, as they are of any natural healing system, but Ayurveda pays particular attention to food and views every opportunity to eat as an opportunity for healing and a way to get herbal medicine into your food. You've all eaten at an Indian restaurant, and you know those very complex Indian recipes that, you never get a salad of iceberg lettuce at an Indian restaurant. You get a dish that has 20 different ingredients. That's because these were all healing remedies at one point that had been made palatable by adding broccoli or whatever. And all of those spices and things in there are designed to do very specific things for your body. And then therapeutically, in Ayurveda, we would adapt those even more specifically to help you aggressively get out of your pain and help your healing. The motto in Ayurveda is to have healing culinary herbs in every meal. And again, that's reflected in your experience of the Indian diet. So the next slide we're going to look at here is Trinity roots, and this is a combination of onions, garlic, and ginger that forms the basis of Ayurvedic food as medicine and, of course, Indian cuisine. So these three herbs are considered to be synergistic. They enhance each other's action, and they all promote circulation and heart health, warm up the digestion, move the food through, help absorption metabolism of food. They're all joint builders and powerful blood purifiers. So they're hormonal balancers that help you detoxify at the same time. Across the board, very general kinds of remedies. I use some of these things every day for their overall benefit. Ginger is called the universal medicine in Ayurveda, and for very good reason. The scriptures literally say that if you can't figure out any other way to treat it, use ginger. So ginger controls the Ayurvedic energy that we call vata, which is instability or sometimes called wind, essentially the nervous system in the body. So one of the best, if not the best, remedy for the nervous system across the board, and everybody could benefit from taking some ginger every day. It's a warming digestive aid that reduces gas and increases absorption and assimilation, and then it has a real specific action on the joints, warming up the joints and helping to heal joint damage. Great remedy to use every day for everybody. These three herbs are all warming, of course, as we said, so they generate heat and sexual energy. Then yoga and Ayurveda use these to transform that to your vital energy. We call this tapas in Ayurveda. It's spiritual heat, basically. So if you consume these warming foods, increase your circulation, increase your hormonal function, enhance your digestion, you're going to be physically, mentally, and spiritually more healthy all the way around. Onion, of course, very common food we know in America, but did you know that onion was revered in Ayurveda for mental clarity, for enhancing the clarity of your thought? So onion, in a very modest, comfortable, tolerable way, enhances circulation throughout your entire body, including to your brain. So we get mental clarity from that extra blood, especially when they're raw. It tolerates small amounts. So in the Ayurvedic terms, we would say that onion reduces the stickiness of kapha. Kapha is the energy in the body that builds tissue and creates lubrication. So kapha is supposed to be slimy and lubricating in the body, slimy in a good way. But when it's in excess, it tends to become sticky and gum up various channels in the body, including circulation. So onions help to reduce that. And in conventional medical terms, we could talk about arterial plaque as being a form of that accumulated stickiness in the body. Well, onion is used for a number of things in Ayurveda, including this very famous Ayurvedic recipe of combining half onion juice and mint tea, half mint tea, for asthma. I've seen this combination abort an asthma attack in progress. The mint tea is just to make the onion more palatable. Mint does have a little bit of breathing, a benefit to open up breathing, but fundamentally it's the onion juice there. So onion is a very rich source of the flavonoid quercetin, which is profoundly anti-inflammatory. So the hot chemicals in the onion that warm us up when we eat it thin mucus and allow us to be able to expectorate that. The quercetin in the onion reduces the inflammation of the asthma, and we can drink that and mix with a mint tea for compatibility. So, of course, asthma is a very dangerous disease, and you want to make sure that the person is not in danger for their health. So maybe while you're waiting for the ambulance, or a person is having just the beginnings of an attack, difficulty breathing, wheezing with asthma, you could go to the juicer and whip up some onion juice and mint tea and see the benefit that you can get. Ginger, one of the three Trinity roots, is a very famous remedy for cough, and ginger is used in many ways in Ayurveda as tea mixed with raw sugar, mixed with honey and ghee to suppress cough. So there's a very nice kind of family remedy that we could use for that. So here's a remedy for persistent cough that you could apply tomorrow. You're going to saute some ginger until it's soft. Add a little bit of turmeric, salt, and add that to yogurt, just according to your taste. So you have a ginger, turmeric, salt, yogurt mixture here, and you're going to eat that with some bread, at least one serving a day for 3 days, and that does all the things we just talked about in terms of enhancing circulation to the lungs, to the bronchioles, and thinning that mucus in addition. One of the ways that we could use this Trinity root combination is encapsulated. Now that we have modern encapsulation technology, we're not limited to eating these things as food. So this mixture is a very good combination of building and detoxification, which is exactly what Ayurveda would like us to do at the change of the seasons. The change of the seasons, that's when summer goes to fall and winter goes to spring. Those are the times when Ayurveda considers our body energy to be the most at risk, the most unstable. You're going from one type of environment to another. So one tradition would be to use a couple capsules every day for long-term maintenance, or especially 30 capsules a day for 4 days or so at the change of the seasons, just to get that thorough clean out and help your body sort of reboot for the new season. So encapsulated there.
Kartaputta, quick question. Would a person take 30 capsules throughout the course of a day? How do you recommend, if someone were going to try that, what would a person do to ingest 30 capsules of this in a day?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for bringing that up. In general, my recommendation is that people start with smaller doses of everything that they're using, and that's a basic principle of Ayurveda, but not widely recognized by herbalists in America generally. So starting with a small dose and working up. The average person might find that 30 capsules a day of Trinity roots is a little warming for their tummy, so it would be good to have started with a smaller dose at some other time, worked up to those more substantial amounts, and just make sure everything is going to be comfortable before just one day waking up and taking 30. But in general, I would recommend taking all these things in divided doses with meals, unless otherwise specifically indicated. We just talked about the mint tea and onion mixture for asthma. Well, that's a crisis control thing that you take when you need it right at that time, and you're not quite so worried about a person's warm tummy. But 30 capsules of Trinity roots would be more comfortable taken with food and then divided. The next item I want to acquaint you with is this idea of using therapeutic pancakes. Sounds a little funny in the land of IHOP here in America, but these are very popular in Asian medicine as a way to get therapeutic food and herbal medicine into people. People like the taste. They're convenient. Any grandma can make them at home. So besan is garbanzo flour. And you could use other flour bases for these pancakes, but garbanzo flour, which we see here on this slide, is particularly convenient because, number one, it's gluten-free. You're not going to have issues with that. It has a very low glycemic index. People do well with this in terms of blood sugar. And it has a very nice consistency that enrobes the ingredients so that when you cook the pancake, you get a decent-tasting herbal food that is packed with herbal medicine. So you're going to use a mixture of garbanzo flour and then these various healing herbs and or foods in these kinds of pancakes. So one good example would be jalapeno pancakes. Chilies are relatively new to Ayurveda, including jalapenos. You could make these with any kind of chilies. I just chose jalapenos here to mention this to you. But chilies have been around Ayurveda for almost 500 years now, so still a very new medicine. Chilies came from the New World, from the Western Hemisphere, and so Ayurveda is just starting to kind of think about whether or not they really should incorporate them. Ayurvedic or Indian food, however, has embraced them tremendously, of course. So we're going to get these into food in a way that helps to enhance their healing ability, along with a few other ingredients in the form of these pancakes. So here's a recipe using bran flour and wheat flour, and you could experiment with this a little bit and use the basin or garbanzo flour if you wanted. But therapeutic pancakes that include ginger, cauliflower, jalapenos, etc. And we'll talk about a couple of these other herbs in a moment. So you can take a look at that, and if you like that, give it a try. Celery, one of the most healing foods in all of Ayurveda. We don't think of celery very much as a healing food. It's kind of a snack item or salad item in our culture, but one of the best remedies for the nervous system and the brain. So for brain and nerve health, I can't think of a better remedy than celery. It's sedating, relaxing, anti-inflammatory, stupendous for treating hay fever. I've seen celery just erase a hay fever attack in the middle of people just gushing mucus with the itchy eyes and all that in 10 minutes. So you would use celery juice to do that, and we could dive into that a little more in a second. How about a celery fast, eating nothing but celery for a day or two or three to tone up your nervous system? Of course, you don't have to limit it to only celery. You could include celery with other things in your diet, but that would be a classic Ayurvedic idea, is to use a mono diet of one healing therapeutic food for an entire day, or extend that as you need. So celery is cooling and calming, and then a substantial nerve tissue healer for nerve tissue injuries, crushing injuries to the nerve, neuromuscular disorders, just intellect, memory, and mental calm. So the fast of steamed celery. You could add some crushed red chilies to that if you like to warm it up just a little bit, because it is on the cooling side. So celery juice. This is really the way to get celery in. Celery, as you know, is fibrous, and it's difficult to chew enough to really get very much going there. But to drink the celery, it doesn't take very much to be pretty substantially relaxing. So you could drink this in the evening before bed to put you in that relaxing mood to help you sleep. You could drink it during the day to be a little more comfortable and calm and less anxious. And I mentioned the hay fever for the celery. So a typical dose for hay fever would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 ounces. So you could take this on a daily basis to reduce your hay fever symptoms, or if you're having an attack, you could make some quick celery juice and drink it down very, very fast. So really calming for agitated people, very beneficial for inflammatory conditions like hay fever, and of course heartburn. Fantastic for heartburn. It will just shut it right down. So a person with a tendency toward heartburn goes out for Mexican food, way overdoes it with a salsa, comes home 3 hours later, is in agony. You whip up some celery juice, you drink again that 6, 8, 10 ounces, and as good as any Tums, that's for sure. Here's an example of using celery juice in a recipe for stress. So when people are having difficulty with their mental stability or just suffering from the stress, you can have a daily mixture, as we see here on the slide, of carrot, beet, and celery juice, and that helps the nervous system, the liver, calming all the way around, anti-inflammatory in every way. We talked about the garbanzo pancakes, so we could make celery pancakes as well. This way of getting things in is very flexible, and you could use it for many things. So we see a recipe here on the slide for celery pancakes, and you notice that there are a number of digestive herbs in there, caraway and ajwain seeds, black pepper. These are all to help the food digest more completely, and that's a real classic Ayurvedic idea. And then we have mainly chopped celery as the ingredient, plus the garbanzo, the basin flour. Celery seed we think of as just a condiment in America, but it has some of these same kinds of properties. It's especially a digestion remedy. And then celery seed contains substances that the body uses for hormone balance, for mainly female hormones. We call those phytosterols or phytoestrogens, to help balance female herb functioning across the board. You know, one of the great things about Ayurveda is that it considers the entire person as the project, as the goal, to bring the whole person to balance. And so Ayurveda really understands that little things add up. So how much celery seed are you going to be able to eat in a day? Well, not very much. But if you use that along with other digestive remedies like fennel or dill, to which it's related, ginger we talked about, and other things that enhance hormone functioning, it all goes in the right direction, and 1,000 little things add up to some big changes over time. So Ayurveda is all about putting your feet on the road and taking one step at a time. My teacher once said that success is defined as continuous effort. In other words, you're never there. You're always working on perfecting yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. And the goal of Ayurveda is to bring all those spheres together to help you. Here we're talking about an herbal way to do that. Let's talk a little bit about using Ayurveda for rejuvenation. So here on this side, we see a picture of the world's oldest yoga teacher, or I suspect actually it's the oldest yoga teacher in the United States. I think likely there are some yoga teachers in India that are older, but she in any case holds the Guinness Book of World Records record for being the oldest active yoga teacher. And, what she's doing in this slide here, I think we all wish we could do at any age, let alone 93. So Ayurveda really wants you to have a long, healthy, happy life and teaches you ways to manage your body and your health and your energy physically, mentally, and spiritually to live a long and healthy life in every way. One of the concepts that's central to this idea is this concept of ojas in Ayurveda. Ojas is the most refined nourishment in your body. So as we eat food and breathe air and do all the things we do that get energy in our body, Ayurveda conceives of the body as refining in several graduated steps this energy until it becomes more and more and more concentrated. And finally, the end goal is this substance called ojas that is a metaphorical concept, but it's the essence of energy in the body. And as people age, this ojas declines with age, and the body loses its juiciness. You could call ojas the ultimate lubricating fluid, or the most concentrated, juicy, wonderful essence of your body. So Ayurveda tries to keep you juicy. In fact, the word in Ayurveda for rejuvenation is rasayan, which means the path of juice, putting your feet on the path of staying juicy throughout an entire lifetime. So the way that my mentor put this idea is that 100 bites of food are concentrated ultimately into 1 drop of blood. That's tremendous concentration right there. And then that 100 drops of blood become 1 drops of ojas. So if you calculate that, 100 times 100, 10,000 bites of food it takes. I once calculated how long it took to consume 10,000 bites of food. It was a month or something like that. So a month worth of food ends up as 1 drop of ojas. And these drops in Ayurveda are the size of a poppy seed, so incredibly concentrated. And whether or not we can actually get in the body with a microscope and find those few drops of ojas is not the point. The point is that we want to have this vitality at every level of all of our tissues and our organ functioning. One great food that we can use to do that is the mung bean, which Ayurveda considers to be the queen of beans. It's the ultimate therapeutic food in Ayurveda. Mung beans are convenient because they cook quickly. It only takes about 20 minutes, no pressure cooking necessary, and they're quite valuable as a nutrient source. Mung beans are cooling energetically, and they have a calming effect on the mind, always good for practitioners of yoga and Ayurveda. We talked about a number of things already that are mentally calming. So mung beans are simultaneously building and detoxifying, which is the ultimate food in Ayurveda, because they do both things that you want, that your cells are doing every second. So you could make mung beans into all kinds of preparations, including various kinds of soups like we see here on the slide. Here would be a classic combination, a cooling combination of mung beans and dates with rice and ginger powder. Very simple, delicious remedy that helps you cool your body and mind and helps to support that problem of chronic low-level inflammation that Americans are so subject to, that's sort of slowly cooking us all to death and ends up resulting in things like cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's. So Ayurveda says that a diet of mung beans and rice, just that, a mono diet for 3 weeks, will cure any disease. That's an exaggerated statement and may not be literally true, but the idea is to inspire you to do some of these things. I think anybody who did a 3-week diet of mung beans and rice would feel very, very different. The mung beans and rice diet is the recuperative diet in Ayurveda, so if you were admitted to an Ayurvedic hospital, you would be eating a diet of nothing but mung beans and rice with the special herbs that your body needed cooked into that stew for you to eat 3 meals a day. A kidney diet, 28 days of mung beans and rice. So these come from various sources of Ayurvedic reference, and you can tell that Ayurveda goes back to this diet of this so-called stew, which we call khichdi in Ayurveda, over and over. Well, another rejuvenative remedy that Ayurveda really likes is warm spiced milk, and usually this is cow milk, but it could be goat milk or in India buffalo milk, to rejuvenate the nervous system and sexual functioning. So these spiced warm milks are the basis of many, many different kinds of therapeutic, rejuvenative drinks. I first learned about these from my mentor because he said, okay, I'm going to teach you about warm spiced milk rejuvenative drinks, and the way you're going to learn about that is to make 50 gallons of a particular recipe that we're going to serve at a course. It was his first course that he presented to men in particular, and he wanted to teach about this special drink to be a rejuvenative for men. So I learned hands-on by doing. One of the things that Ayurveda really likes to mix with these Ayurvedic warming drinks is sesame seed. Here we see black sesame seed that is considered in Ayurveda to be the superior type. Sesame seeds come in black and white, and Ayurveda considers the black type to be a little bit more rejuvenative, but you could use the white if that's what you had. Black sesame seed is easily available in the Asian markets. So on our slide here, we see a drink for ojas, for rejuvenation, for sexual functioning, for enhancing longevity. 100 parts ground black sesame, and then just a little bit, 1 part each of cinnamon and clove to warm it up a little bit and enhance digestion. Classic Ayurvedic concept. Use a basic, sweet, tissue-building, rejuvenative, and then add some things to enhance the warming, digestive capability of the body to be able to digest that little bit heavier kind of thing, and you mix that together in hot milk. So that would be something to consider. It's tasty, and it helps in rejuvenation, rebuilding tissues, and giving you healthy tissues for a lifetime. Another type of protein that Ayurveda likes is split milk, which we know of as curds and whey. So this is a particularly digestible protein that your body can assimilate, get into your tissues to help building and repair of tissues as proteins do. Easily available, people like the taste, especially for women. Women do particularly well with this kind of protein digesting it. So we can take a look at how it's made here. You're going to need some lemon juice. You warm up the milk in the pan until it's just to the point of starting to simmer a little bit. You're not going to boil it, but just right up to that point. It's called scalding the milk, and then you're going to pour a little bit of lemon juice as you whisk this milk, and then very quickly it's just going to break into pieces, the curds and whey, as you see here on this slide. And the curds are the protein part. That's what is the beginning of that soft Indian cheese that you might have seen, paneer, that you have in the Indian restaurants, the beginning of cottage cheese from in our culture. So the whey is very nutritious as well, contains a number of amino acids and enzymes, so we can use that. So you could remix these and reblend them or consume them separately, or spice up the curds however you like it. Split milk, great source of protein. Still on the rejuvenation topic, moving on to lassi, which probably almost all of you have had in an Indian restaurant, and probably what you had was a mango lassi that was fluorescent neon orange, and of course that color was from red dye number 2, and the drink was about half sugar. So that's not the Ayurvedic idea of the way to use these things. Lassi is a very famous herbal medicine medium. I really like them because we get great response from people with using them. The lassi is made with dilute yogurt, usually 50-50, and then it's frothed up a little bit by blending it. So it's a kind of a frothy, delicious dilute yogurt drink. And you can put a whole bunch of things in that lassi, and it still tastes great, and people will drink it. So it's therapeutic in and of itself. It contains those probiotics that we like from the yogurt. It enhances digestion. It's tissue building because of the protein. It's cooling, and then it's a great medicine base. So lassi can be made from buttermilk, sometimes even just milk, and then water, maybe salt, other various kinds of spices. So as we can see here on this slide, here's an example of a detoxifying diuretic lassi that uses 4 tablespoons of yogurt in 12 ounces of water. So this one is a little more dilute. You add sea salt to taste, and you get the detoxifying benefit from that. So these therapeutic lassis, in addition to be cooling, detoxifying, and nourishing, also have a great preventive effect on people's metabolism. And so across the board, Ayurveda uses lassi as a way to support the blood, the liver, the adrenal glands, prostate kinds of issues.
So Coach Aputika, question. If someone were going to use one of these lassis that you're recommending, in order to get the type of results, is it something you'd want to be doing every single day for a period of time, or every few days? What do you recommend?
Yeah, another great question. These lassis are mild, and so this falls in that category of grandma medicine, folk medicine that people know how to do in the public, the people who use Ayurveda in Asia, and they would use lassis on a regular basis. It's a classic remedy for the summer because it is cooling, so it often is combined with other cooling, anti-inflammatory, summer-type things, and typically the things that are included in the lassi are relatively mild, fruit juices, beverage herbs, things like that you would take over an extended period of time, maybe 6 weeks for a therapeutic course, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So lassis are available in hundreds of formulas, sweet, sour, salty, edit point, sweet, salty, spicy, sour, savory, but as a base for medicine, one way or another. So here's a good example of a lassi formula, just to give you a starter with this. This is a kidney lassi that also improves vision, improves the cognitive processes, is an antioxidant, so many things. So you can see that it's 10 ounces of water with 2 ounces of yogurt and then 8 ounces of other various fruit juices, including pomegranate and cranberry. So this is clearly a modern adaptation of this idea because it includes things like cranberry that come from North America. So this same kind of concept, it has relatively little yogurt by comparison, but it's still in that spectrum of lassi formulas. Well, let's talk a little bit about detoxification, which is going to be also one of the topics in the Way of Ayurveda healing course that we're going to be doing here coming up soon. Let's talk about one of my favorite dietary remedies, and that's beets. Beets are liver cleansers, and they help to enhance blood flow through the liver, help the liver produce bile, and help the body detoxify more rapidly. So one of the things that happens often with Americans is that they end up with what we would call liver congestion. That is, their liver is straining to do the job that it's supposed to do, and blood flow through the liver is inhibited, and everything is kind of backed up in the body. So we use beets as a detoxifier for the liver, and as a food remedy, they're surprisingly potent. So we get deep detox out of these beet formulas, and they're particularly effective for hemorrhoids that are associated with liver toxicity. 50% of adult Americans have ongoing hemorrhoids, so it's critical that we treat this, and beets is one of the best ways. Ayurveda would like you to eat as much beet as possible for as long as possible to be able to get the results that you want. So you could do a mono diet of beets for a few days. You could add beets a serving or two a day, but any way that you get them in. And you could use these raw, steamed, or juiced any way you like. You could cook them up in a casserole with other things like carrots that are all liver cleansers. Any way that you want to spice it up and get those beets into you. So on the screen now we see a recipe for a beet and carrot casserole that's basically just beets and carrots cooked up in the oven with a little bit of things added there. So you can try that. That's tasty. How about beet juice? Beet juice is probably the most potent therapeutic juice that we use, and normally we suggest that people limit their beet juice consumption to 2 ounces per dose, and then mixed with some other things like we talked about earlier with the celery juice, just because it can be pretty dramatic. I remember one time I was shopping at a health food store, and I was just standing up at the counter. It was just me and the employee of the store there. And a woman, probably about 20 years old, walked in and just announced to us right as soon as she walked in, "I just drank a quart of fresh beet juice." And I said to the employee there, "Do you have a place for this woman to lie down, because she's about to go?" And just as I said it, her eyes rolled back and she swooned right there in front of us. And he was able to reach out and catch her, and we ended up taking her to the back of the store where he had a little cot, and she was able to to rest for a while. She was out completely, and I hung around just to make sure she was going to be okay. And then about 20 minutes later, her eyes kind of fluttered open, and I said, "Whoa, what was that?" So her body had a drastic, rapid detox there, and that would be pretty unusual. But we'd like to be conservative with the beets. Probably a good thing for that particular woman in the long run, but not very comfortable or safe. So beet pancakes. Here we go back to the pancakes again. So a way to get in beets in a comfortable way. Beets are definitely trendy in high-end restaurants now, so you'll be able to find a lot of great beet recipes, whether it's mixed juices or something like these beet pancakes. Here's a recipe on your screen for beet pancakes made with millet. And we see the garlic onion in there, and a bunch of other things to help us digest the beets. Liver. So while we're talking about beet juice, I just wanted to mention a situation that I was involved with, again with my mentor, where we were dealing with someone who was very negative and aggressive. She wanted to end her marriage. She was depressed. She was angry. Everything was wrong. She was out of sorts in every possible way. And so Yogi Bhajan said to me, "Can't you see her arc line is gone?" Arc line is a part of the energy field of the body that yoga talks about. And has she been taking drugs? And of course, the woman was denying it, but finally it came out in the conversation. So of course, I got the assignment to make the juice for her, and he wanted her to take 2 quarts of juice each day, a combination of beet, celery, and orange juice in this particular case. And so, being the student, I got to make the 2 quarts a day and deliver it to her personally. She drank them in a week. The whole thing completely turned around. Her body was detoxified by the beet juice. It was nourished by the orange juice. Her nervous system was calmed and cooled and healed by the celery juice. And it was like dealing with a different person each week. Each day for that week, she was visibly better and dramatically better. And it was almost like she just kind of shook her head and said, "Was that really me?" At the end of that week. So dramatic effect. But again, we used the kind of doses that were needed to get the job done.
That's a great story, KP, and it's just like a testament to sometimes where just the one right thing, herbally or food-wise, can just make life so much easier. And I think that story to me really kind of tapped the essence of what this thing is really about. Is that at the end of the day, the bottom line is these things help so much if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Ayurveda has really worked this out, and that's one of the main messages I want to get through in this whole long course that we're doing, is that this stuff really works. And it's not a convenient hobby. It's not a fun, kind of thing that wouldn't it be nice if it worked. It actually really works, but you have to do the right thing in the right way. On a grandma level, give little Johnny spearmint tea for his tummy. It works fantastically. On a clan level, eat mung beans and rice for a couple weeks to help reset your system. On a practitioner level, use some of these remedies to treat more serious conditions that we've mentioned, like asthma and nerve disorders. It works across the board. It works very, very well. And we just have to do what our ancestors told us to do, and the results can be very, very dramatic. So, yeah, that's a great example with that one beet juice story. So just to remind you, we are doing this program, The Way of Ayurvedic Herbs, a complete course on Ayurveda and yogic healing, and we'll have a few more details about that a little later, but I'd like you to invite all of you to this program. I think it's going to be a great course. We have a lot of great ideas. We know the topics already. We'll go over those in a moment. But my emphasis in all of this is to help people with things that actually really work, that they can leave the course with things that they'll be able to use the next day. So we'll focus on those things that you can use in your kitchen, in your medicine cabinet. We'll talk about some beginning, some intermediate, some advanced things. I think everybody who takes it, whatever their level, will be able to get a new perspective on Ayurveda and come up with some remedies that you'll be able to use in your practice or in your kitchen. So look forward to seeing you there in that course. So we talked about earlier some key issues with herbal medicine, and I just wanted to emphasize that herbal medicine is potent and powerful and really, really works. We are in this period of time in America where we're relearning about it. If we go back 100 years, the United States was a world center for herbal medicine and used it very effectively in some very powerful ways to treat very serious conditions. And we've sort of lost that tradition, but now we're regaining it. And since Ayurveda never lost that tradition, we can borrow heavily from Ayurveda to help us in our daily life. So you have to assess things carefully, and then you have to choose the right herb. You have to get good quality herbs, and then most importantly, you have to use the right dose, which is probably the biggest issue that's challenging us in terms of our using herbal medicine. I want to talk very briefly about some ideas about dose, because I see it as the main thing that is going off the track in terms of people being able to apply Ayurvedic medicine. Here on your screen you'll see a picture of an Ayurvedic pharmacy, and you can see that it's stocked to the brim with hundreds of types of Ayurvedic medicine. This was from Asia, and Ayurveda has thousands and thousands of remedies, and you've got 1 billion plus people in India using it every day. Ayurveda, though, uses high doses for effectiveness, and we talked about a few things here. We'll talk about a few more later, but generally speaking, the message for us is to use more if we want to get the results that the Ayurvedic texts tell us that we can get and that practitioners tell us are effective. And often these high doses are for very long periods. That has the potential of creating some side effects. Usually they're mild, but we can offset those by modifying the formula. So we mentioned a few things earlier, like toning down the heat of the onion juice with the mint tea. That's a simple example, but Ayurvedic formulas get complex, but the thing that's consistent about them is that the doses are high enough to have pharmaceutical type effects and allow you to treat very serious things very effectively. You need some training to do some of these things. And again, in this course, we'll talk about things that you can use at home or as a practitioner with some of these new kinds of wrinkles. Ayurveda uses doses that are sometimes up to 50 times higher than the doses that we see in modern American texts. I know that's a shocking number, but we sometimes read in texts about doses of 250 milligrams, 500 milligrams. These are very small doses, an eighth of a teaspoon, a quarter of a teaspoon. And often Ayurveda would prefer to use multiple tablespoons of some of those kinds of doses. These are foods, after all, and Ayurveda has worked out these doses over centuries, and we know what's effective. There are more powerful medicines in Ayurveda where we would use just a few hundred milligrams or a few grams, but generally speaking, doses have to be higher. So I encourage you to study and investigate that. In this course, we'll talk about the real doses that actually work for real people in the real world in the 21st century in America. We will talk about traditional Ayurvedic doses. I will encourage you in the course to work up to some of those kinds of doses, but I am going to be mentioning some doses here as we continue to talk about Ayurveda. And I want to assure you that these are real doses and you should take these amounts. So we mentioned Trinity roots. Trinity roots is that mixture of onions, garlic, and ginger. And fundamentally, the core of this formula is the ginger. We talked about ginger being the universal medicine in Ayurveda. Ginger is a stupendous remedy for musculoskeletal pain. It has an affinity for the joints. It circulates throughout the entire body and brings soothing warmth to all of the joints and musculoskeletal areas of the body. So this combination can be used in an acute way as well. One of the ways that we like to use this is 4 capsules every 2 hours for acute back pain. So you have a situation where a person just can't stand up. They're in such agony and they're just miserable from this. You give them the 4 capsules, you start to feel a little bit better. 2 hours later, another 4 capsules, then you just throughout the day. So that's a substantial amount of capsules throughout the day. You might be talking about 30 capsules, during that day for their acute back pain. A wonderful remedy, but it gets into doses that are higher than we often are used to thinking about. Triphala is the most famous combination in Ayurveda. It's the most widely used. It's in the most formulas. It's a 3-herb formula that balances all of the energies in the body in proper proportion, so it can be taken by anybody for any kind of benefit. The name Triphala means 3 fruits. Tri is 3, phal is fruit. We see on the slide here the names of the 3 fruits, amla, bibitaki, and haritaki. The word amla actually means sour. The word bibitaki means disease fears it, and the word haritaki means God's nurse. In other words, it's so potent that it's actually, you're being nursed by God. Very famous remedies. This combination of 3 herbs is beneficial for every tissue in the body. It's a combination of building and detoxifying, which is rare in herbal medicine. Liver, skin, and eyes especially benefit. Glandular balance, so it increases energy, stamina, healthy skin, healthy mind. It's the overall do everything go-to remedy in Ayurveda. So we see these 3 fruits picked out in the wild. Most herbs in Ayurveda still in India today are wildcrafted, although cultivation is becoming rapidly more common. But these are the wild versions. We see one of the trees from one of these herbs in the background here. These are all on these trees that are about the size of a cherry tree. And we can see they're all sort of leathery fig-like fruits that grow in the foothills of the Himalayas, and they're dried and mixed together in equal proportions to create this Triphala. So we see them here. This torpedo-shaped one is the haritaki, bibitaki, and then the amla is the kind of translucent one that's the size of an apricot. 3 herbs to treat all of the Ayurvedic doshas. Triphala is a remedy that everyone in Ayurveda would use every day. It's like a multiple vitamin, not in the sense of having the vitamin content, but in the sense of being nutritional insurance that people would take every single day. Triphala contains the main medicine for each dosha, for each type of body energy in Ayurveda. So the amla, the sour one, is cooling for pitta. Bibitaki is astringent for kapha, and haritaki treats vata, or the energy of instability or the nervous system. So the maintenance dose of Triphala is about 1 gram a day. That would be about 2 capsules. You take that every day forever. Very, very slow-acting remedy. So I've been teaching about Triphala now for 35 years, and it's now common that I'll teach a class somewhere and someone will say, you know what, I took a class from you 25 years ago, and you talked about Triphala, and I started using it, and I'm 25 years older, and look at my beautiful skin now. That sort of thing. That's how you have to relate to it as a lifetime remedy. The haritaki in Triphala is a little bit stool loosening, and so we can also use that as a mild laxative as needed, and it takes about 5 grams of Triphala per day to do that. So here we can see amla. Amla is the anti-inflammatory core of this combination, and it's used to preserve your youth and prevent senility in general. But it's a very, very famous herb for the mind. So if we want to keep our marbles, the main thing that causes Americans to develop cognitive difficulties as they age is chronic low-level inflammation, where our thermostat is turned up just a tiny, tiny notch too high, and we're slowly kind of simmering our tissues, simmering in our own juice, and it causes slow, consistent damage. Amla is perfect for controlling that, so we don't end up with this inflammatory damage, and we can stay mentally sharp and youthful throughout our entire life.
KP, a quick question about that.
Sure.
If someone is going to use the amla, or if someone has that kind of what you call the chronic low-grade inflammation, the temperature is just a little too high, is taking Triphala enough, or would they need to increase the dose of amalaki, or is that something more complex for the longer course here?
That's exactly how this is used, and that's a great point. Triphala is the base, and it's equal proportions of those 3 herbs, but almost no one has the 3 doshas in equal proportions. And so what's very typically done is a base of the Triphala, and then you spike that with more of one of the 3 fruits, depending on what's going on in your particular body. So the Ayurvedic term for that chronic low-level heat is rakta pitta, which means pitta, or heat in the blood, and the blood is just a little bit too hot all over the body. And so we could double or triple the amount of amla that's added to the triphala.
Yeah, so for instance, if I was taking, hypothetically, the Organic India, I was taking 3 capsules of their triphala every night, then, and I had this kind of condition, then perhaps I'd also buy their Amalaki capsules and then drop a couple of Amalakis on top of the triphala that I'm already taking?
That's exactly correct. And you're full of these great pieces of information. Of course, we know that Jaidev is a very accomplished Ayurvedic practitioner in his own right. You're also using the term amlaki, and I was calling it amla. It means the same thing. Ki on the end is like apostrophe S in English, so it just means the thing belonging to the fruit's thing. So amla or amlaki, same thing. The word actually means sour, and these fruits are incredibly sour. They look like they would be delicious, but they're horrible tasting, so you don't eat them raw like an apricot. They are cooked in all kinds of various ways in Ayurveda into beverages and pickles and candy in so many different ways, but they have to be prepared to offset their horrible taste. But as powder, you can use them. So to your point about taking the triphala at night, that's a very common way to do it Ayurvedically, because it takes about 12 to 16 hours to initiate a bowel movement with the triphala. The haritaki is the stool loosening ingredient, and it's processed very slowly in the body. So people often take the triphala at dinner time, and then they're awakened by the bowel movement. Ideally, Ayurveda would like you to arise and immediately have a bowel movement. Your body should be so perfectly timed that it's ready to eliminate its waste the moment you get up. And if you experiment with when you take the triphala in the evening, some people it's bedtime, some people it's mid-evening, and you're awakened by the bowel movement, that's just the perfect rhythm with which to use it. So here on the slide we see amla in powder form, and that's the way Ayurveda likes to use it, stirred into something mushy enough to make it be able to be swallowed. That would typically be ghee or clarified butter in Ayurveda. That's another anti-inflammatory remedy, so they work together. But you could just use a little water or a bite of mushy food to swallow it. Remember, it's going to be horrible. That reminds me of an experience I had with my teacher when he was first starting to introduce this idea of triphala. He talked about it in one lecture, and then he came back for class the next week, and one of the students asked a question and said, "You said we could take triphala with butter and honey. I tried it, and it tastes awful." And he said, "Well, how did you take it?" And she said, "Well, I just mixed it in with butter and honey and made toast and smeared it on toast and tried to eat it like strawberry jam." And he just, cracked up. It's just horrible tasting. And what he meant was that you can stir it into ghee and honey so that it's able to digest properly. So the ghee is the medium for the amla, and the honey is the medium for the bibitaki in that formula. And he went on to talk about that. But he did say at that time there was a question about whether you could put it in a capsule, and he said no, it should be tasted, which is the Ayurvedic idea. And then he acknowledged that it tastes terrible. So my perspective on these things is very practical. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I want to do what really works. So one thing I absolutely have discovered, the fundamental principle of herbal medicine is the only herbs that work are the ones you actually take. Having an herb sit on the shelf doesn't work as well as actually getting it into your body. And so people are so yucked out by it that they can't take it, it's not going to work. So I don't have an objection to people taking capsules of triphala, as you mentioned, Jaidev. Ideally, it would be better to taste it, but again, some of these taste pretty bad, so you do what you can. So we mentioned amla as part of the triphala. Haritaki, the Ayurvedic motto for that is that it brings long life and a happy mind. This is the herb that controls the nervous system, nourishes and balances the nervous system in the body. And so, of course, it's going to also enhance cognition and mental functioning and detoxification of the energy channels in the body from the Ayurvedic perspective. So very often it would be used with raw sugar, honey, dried ginger, pipali, which is a type of peppercorn, and salt as a longevity and cognitive aid. So here on the screen we see dried haritaki, those torpedo-like fruits that are dried and ground to powder. Very famous remedy that I learned from my mentor is a triphala nasal flush, and I've taught this for 30 years. I found it to be incredibly effective. This is used for congestion. So you wake up in the morning, you have a horrible congested head, you know that this is going to be one of those situations in which you have the leaky, drip-by-drip clear mucus through the rest of the day, and you just want to get it out. Now, we're not going to cure this, whether it's your hay fever or your sinus infection or whatever it is. We're just going to get that mucus out. The way you do this is take a couple teaspoons of triphala powder, stir it into a tumbler of water, room temperature water. You put that on your bedside stand. You sleep. When you wake up without eating anything or moving around at all, first thing you do is just reach over and drink down that liquid, into which the active ingredients of the triphala have become dissolved. And you can drink the dregs if you want or not. It doesn't matter. In about 5 minutes, that'll create a drastic, dramatic nasal purge where it'll be like a fire hose coming out of your nose, and you'll have 3 or 4 great big sneezes, and it'll all be cleared out, and you'll be done. So very convenient as a way to just get rid of all that goop so it doesn't bug you for the rest of the day. Triphala nasal flush, great remedy to know about. One of my favorite herbs, moving on, is gotu kola. This is a little delicate, flimsy salad vegetable that's used as food throughout Asia, so we can use it as food or medicine in Ayurveda. It's a member of the parsley family. If you know how to cook spinach, you would know how to use gotu kola as food. So it has 2 main uses in Ayurveda. One is that it's the best nerve tonic in the world to increase memory, thinking, cognitive functioning, and also to support the actual tissue of the nerves. So injuries to the nerves, crushing injury, or neuromuscular diseases, that sort of thing. The second use is connective tissue healing. So it's your whole body is made of connective tissue. So fractures, bruises, sprains, strains, skin disorders like eczema, really effective there. It has cold, bitter energy, but it is a tonic building herb, especially for things like the skin. So using gotu kola as a food is a wonderful way to do it. Now in Asia you'd have access to the fresh leaf, and in Vietnam it would be served to you as a salad or steamed vegetable, but we're going to be able to get it as a dried vegetable here. If you're going to use it as food, you would want to use at least 1 ounce per day. That's 1 ounce by weight of the dried herb cooked into food. I saw one case where a woman had eczema all over her entire body. Everything below her neck was covered with eczema. She cooked 1 ounce a day of the dried gotu kola, rehydrated that, and cooked it into sag, or in other words, pureed vegetable, like you would make pureed spinach or something like that. And in 6 weeks, beautiful clear skin. In fact, when I saw her after 6 weeks, she had one piece of eczema about the size of a dime on one thumb that was still shrinking, and that was the last little bit of it. So in 6 weeks, 1 ounce a day of gotu kola cooked into food, spiced to make a delicious pureed vegetable dish, completely resolved her eczema. So this sag, the word sag just means greens in North India, but you probably all had it at the Indian restaurant. It can be made with mustard greens or spinach or those kinds of things. I'm going to suggest using gotu kola. I like to make gotu kola sag by rehydrating the dried gotu kola and mixing it half and half with spinach. The gotu kola is a little bitter, and people often kind of like that mixture, and you just puree them and spice them up however you normally would.
When you say rehydrated, can you explain to folks what you mean by that?
We see on the slide here the dried gotu kola. That's where the vegetable has been dried and chopped into small pieces for tea. In order to make that food-like and make it palatable, we're going to go through that dry material and pick out any of the hard stems that would poke you in the tongue, and then we're going to soak that in water overnight, and so it soaks up the liquid and makes a nice mushy vegetable kind of preparation that then you could cook in with the spinach or whatever. We could also use gotu kola as tea. That also works very, very well, and the dose would be similar.
So 1 ounce as an infusion would work?
That's right. So we would soak that herb in water that had just been boiled. We would steep it like you would make tea, but the dose is going to be pretty high. So whereas with beverage teas we often use a teaspoon of herb, in this case 1 ounce of herb is a heaped palmful. It's a lot of herb. You're going to weigh out that ounce on a scale so you know how much to use, and then steep it in a minimum of a pint of water, but you could use more than that if you chose, as long as you squeeze it out completely, get all the last drop of medicine out, and drink that during the day. You can add anything else you want for the sake of taste. Willow bark. Willow grows on every continent, is standby in every herbal system, including Ayurveda. So this is what aspirin originally came from. Willow bark is a cold, bitter herb that's used to treat pain, fever, and inflammation. So it doesn't taste wonderful, but you can use it in tea form, about an ounce by weight. You see it here on the screen, this chopped up bark, and you brew it up as tea, and it's like using aspirin, very effective. Well, Ayurveda has another little wrinkle here along with that, and that's to combine that with cinchona bark, another very famous herb in the history of world herbalism. Cinchona came from a South American tree. It's the source of a very famous drug, quinine. It was brought to India centuries ago, but it's now very much a part of Ayurveda. India has whole plantations of cinchona because it was used to make this drug earlier in the 20th century. Cinchona is the bitterest herb known, very cold, very bitter. It's antimicrobial, but the beauty of it is that it's synergistic with willow, so they enhance each other's action. Willow you can use as tea, but cinchona not possible to use as tea. It's just so incredibly bitter, so capsules would be the way to go there. So here's a modern adaptation, a pain and stress formula that comes from Ayurveda, modern in the sense that it's since Europeans began going to India, but of course centuries old already. So willow and cinchona mixed, 30 capsules a day for pain or the flu. We talked about cinchona being antimicrobial. It's an immune booster, and it treats the pain and fever of the flu in this case. I remember one time I was sitting in my house, and I was waiting for some guests to arrive, and they pulled up in the corner. We went down to meet them, and one of the men in the car had a back spasm, and his back pain was so bad that he couldn't even get out of the car. Literally, he just couldn't get out. And so we sort of, it took us a half an hour to get him out of the car. We just inch by inch by inch, he was just in agony. We gave him 4 capsules of this formula the moment he got out of the car, and gave him 4 capsules every hour thereafter. And by the end of the day, he was walking around pain-free, dramatically effective. You got some muscle relaxing ability. You got the pain and inflammation reducing qualities. Really wonderful to know about this formula. 24 hours, no pain with a formula like this. Another very famous herb for the immune system, guduchi. It's guduchi stem is the main part that we use, although, as you can see in the slide, when it's harvested, people are not very particular about which part they grab. So sometimes you'll see in the guduchi that you get from the harvester some stems, some berries, some root, some leaves, and but it's all part of the same thing. It's a tropical Indian plant. It's the common name for it in North India is gillo, and it's used for cold and flu. So this is a really classic remedy used by everybody from grandma to the clinical practitioner. I really like this herb. It really delivers as promised, and you could go out and get guduchi from Ayurvedic sources in America and start using it tomorrow to treat cold and flu very effectively. So people grow this plant outside their homes so that when little Johnny comes down in the morning with a cold and flu, grandma can run out, grab a hunk of the live plant, tear it off the stem, throw it in the teapot, and half an hour later, little Johnny is drinking guduchi tea, and his fever is going down, his symptoms are improving. Profoundly antimicrobial. So it has these beautiful berries that we can see on the slide here. And again, you can just grab a hunk of it. Sometimes you see leaves, berries, an immune support remedy, but it's also aphrodisiac. So Ayurveda really likes this herb as a long-term tissue builder. Boy, you got something that's a bitter digestive aid, an aphrodisiac, a long-term rejuvenator, and an immune support that treats cold and flu acutely. You got a real treasure there, a wonderful herb to know about, easily available now in America. So we did mention earlier that it is a bitter digestive aid. It is quite bitter, and you can use it to enhance your digestive function.
Hey, P, I often think about this with some of these herbs like guduchi, which are so revered in Ayurveda, where you have something, like you said, bitter antimicrobial, and yet tissue builder and aphrodisiac. They're so almost contradictory in their nature and so rare. Do you think about that? Is that often why these herbs are so revered? Of course, because number one, they help so much, but then they do so many things they're kind of they're very unique in the world of plants.
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's a flag to an herbalist. When you have an herb that has contradictory energetics like that, tissue-building, tonic, aphrodisiac, along with being bitter digestive aid that treats fever and kills bugs, really rare.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and so those are always known as very special herbs. This is contradictory, and when you use it in one way, you get the results you want. You use it another way. Most tissue-building herbs in Ayurveda, rejuvenative, ojas-building, stamina-enhancing herbs are not bitter because bitter is detoxifying and tissue depleting, but bitter does work as a digestive aid. So just a treasure chest here of an herb, really characteristic looking. The Indian common name for guduchi is heartleaf moonseed, and you can see that the leaf is this beautiful shape of a heart, which reminds me that one of the units that we're going to be talking about, and I'll mention this again later, in our class is the metaphysical, metaphorical, spiritual qualities of these herbs, and we're going to get into that, and Ayurveda definitely uses that to decide which herbs to use under what circumstances. But that's just a beautiful statement about this plant, that it's giving you its heart to do all the things that we do with it. Guduchi is considered the best herb for clearing the channels, the energy channels of the body. So those of you that are yoga practitioners know that yoga talks about 72,000 energy channels in the body from big to small. Those are called shrotamsi in Ayurveda, and guduchi specifically for cleaning the shrotamsi of the brain, in other words, enhancing mental activity. So really, really nice to know about. We're going to consume this as a powder, ideally capsules or stirred into food. So for an acute infection like little Johnny with the flu, 15 grams would be a typical dose. But for maintenance, for a long-term rejuvenative remedy, a couple grams a day would be good. So we can see on the slide here what this is going to look like when you get it from the supplier. It'll be this chopped up vine. All right, so that's the last herb I wanted to talk about today, and this will give you a bit of a taste of the kinds of things that we're going to talk about in our longer course. We'll go through herbal medicines system by system, use by use, and we'll talk about folk medicine, grandma medicine, all the way up to clinical medicine of these things. This course will be all about healing with Ayurveda and yoga, Ayurvedic herbs, yogic foods. So the first episode in our course, the first chapter, is going to be daily essentials, how you can live to your highest. We talked about triphala, we talked about onions, garlic, and ginger. We'll talk about many of these things that are very good foundation remedies that you can take to stay healthy, keep healthy throughout your life, and live to your fullest potential. So that'll be a really good base to start our program, and then we'll move on in our second unit to detoxification. Very much a craze in America today, a hallmark of Ayurveda, and one of the main things that Ayurveda likes to focus on to keep people healthy. Building and detoxification are the two sides of the coin that we have to keep balanced. So we'll go into some detail there about how to stay detoxified, how to get detoxified, and how to stay detoxified for a lifetime. Then we're going to move on to strength-enhancing remedies, things that give you muscular strength, sexual strength, mental strength, stamina, mental capacity, and bring back that zip that many people have lost over the years. Next, we're going to delve deeply into sex and romance and talk about how to have a happy sex life, a happy romantic life, relationships, sexual functioning. No need for sexual functioning to decline as people's lives age. We'd like you to be potent, powerful, and have cozy time with your beloved. And we'll talk about herbs and foods to do that. That'll be an exciting class for everybody. The next issue is going to be mental and spiritual development with herbs and food. So how we enhance cognitive function, how to treat some of the dementias, that kind of thing that we get into using food and herbal medicine to stay sharp, have a good memory, and mental functioning. And the final class in our first 6 is about digestion, which Ayurveda treasures above all other things. And you notice that many of the things we talked about today circle back to digestion one way or another. So we will talk about digestive disorders, but we'll also talk about how to know whether you have a well-functioning digestive system and what we can do to keep that system healthy throughout your entire time. So the normal price for this course is $450, but for those of you that are attending this class, we have a special discount for you. So the price has been reduced for you folks to $375 That'll be the price, the full price of this course for you that are here listening to this today. And if you get in early, we have a special discount for you. You'll see a discount code on the homepage for this course, but we'll give you an even greater discount down to $275 for acting quickly. We really like you to take this course. We want to make it affordable for you and have as many people joining us as possible. So $275 will be the full price for those of you who grab your discount code and get in early at the end of this class. So we'd like you to go check that out and to meet with you. So as a special extra gift to you, we'd like to offer you 2 bonus classes in addition to the 6 that we'd originally planned. We'll talk about a couple of very interesting areas of Ayurveda to enhance your understanding, your knowledge. That will bring our total number of classes up to 8 with these 2 bonus classes. We're going to talk about healing foods, and we'll have an entire class on how to cook in a way to help enhance your health. We'll talk about some of the kinds of things we talked about today, how to get foods in to treat acute conditions, things to help you stay healthy over time, but from a food perspective. You know, Ayurveda draws no distinction between food and medicine. It's all one spectrum of things, and we'll go more toward the food end of the spectrum here and talk about things that keep you healthy day to day, but also things that help you avoid disease and treat disease with food that you can have on your dinner plate every day. And the final bonus class is herbal mysticism, the vibrational qualities of food, how they help you with meditation, with cognitive function, more the spiritual side of these plants and how Ayurveda came to name these plants, the kinds of things that they were named. Ayurveda has a number of really beautiful, fanciful names for these plants. For example, the main herb in Ayurveda for the heart is a plant called Arjuna that means not twisted. In other words, innocent in the heart. You haven't become twisted by your life in the world. You still are pure and innocent. The main herb used to treat female reproductive issues in Ayurveda is a plant called Ashok, which means no grief. So it is used to treat grief specifically, and it's also to elevate women to that level of consciousness where they're in bliss and beauty and prosperity throughout their entire life. So we'll talk about the spiritual application of these things and how to use plants to enhance meditation, spiritual growth, and how to get into the more subtle aspects of Ayurveda. So that'll be a fun class. So we'll go all the way from the digestive tract all the way up to elevated consciousness with herbs and food. So a full course in Ayurveda, the way of Ayurvedic herbs. So it's been a pleasure being with you today. We'd like for you to join us for your next step in health and look forward to seeing you at this course. A lot of great things coming up.
Yeah, and I'll interject in there as well. I think for everyone listening and who's gotten to the end of this class, KP's knowledge regarding herbs speaks for itself. And if I look at it for myself, which I am, I'm very much looking forward to learning more from you, KP, and taking this course myself. But sometimes it takes an immersion of study that is significant enough in the amount of time and energy that we spend on it to get us to actually do the things that are going to make the differences. And that's something I think about a lot with these more in-depth courses, is that immersion of study actually is powerful in and of itself. And if you think of it, even just one of these things, even if you took just one gem out of this, which it's very likely you're going to take many more, and think about the type of impact that it can have on one's life. If when you talked about sex and romance and that chapter, or that what do you say, episode of the course? I like that word, episode. That episode of the course. Man, how many people in the world right now could benefit from knowing this knowledge that's been around forever, and yet somehow it's still in the underground, and we're also blessed to have access to it. So I also encourage all of you, if you can find any way to do it, join in this course, because this is valuable stuff. That it's really things that are going to serve you for a lifetime. So with that being said, thanks once again, KP, for being very generous with all the knowledge that you've gained over these 40 plus years. thanks for another wonderful class.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. So nice to be here. See all of you when we come up with the course.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.